The hall of the Galactic Council was vast, so vast that entire cities of Earth could have fit inside. The ceiling glowed with blue and silver light, and massive banners of alien empires floated in the air, shining with holographic brilliance. Voices of 1,000 species echoed, some hissing, some clicking, some deep and rumbling like thunder. All of them had gathered for one purpose: to decide the fate of one world. The fate of Earth. The air was heavy with tension. Every seat was filled, every eye turned toward the great circle at the center of the chamber. In the middle, the image of Earth hovered as a glowing projection, spinning slowly, fragile and small compared to the giants who judged it. For centuries, the humans had been tolerated, watched carefully, allowed to trade and travel among the stars. But today, that tolerance ended. Today, the question was asked: should humanity stay, or should humanity be banished? A representative of a scaled race with golden eyes rose first. His voice was sharp, cutting through the noise. Humans are dangerous. They fight among themselves endlessly. They breed conflict wherever they go. If we allow them to remain within our sphere, they will infect us all with their wars. His words were met with roars of agreement from many seats. Then, a being with 6 arms and a voice like grinding stone stood. Their world is resource-rich. Their minds are clever. Too clever. Already they build machines we cannot control. Already they move faster than we expect. No. They must be cast out. Humanity must be removed from the safety of our council. One by one, voices rose, each declaring their fear of Earth. Some remembered wars fought with humans on distant colonies. Others remembered bargains broken, or trade deals where humans gained too much. Each word painted the same picture: humanity as a threat. Humanity as a problem. Humanity as something the galaxy could no longer trust. At the edge of the chamber, a few voices dared to defend Earth. A small avian delegate with feathers of silver spoke softly, her voice nearly lost in the storm. They are young, yes. They are bold, yes. But they are also capable of greatness. They build not only weapons but wonders. They are curious, explorers, dreamers. Do not judge them only by their wars. Her words shook in the vast hall, and for a moment there was silence. But then, the laughter began. Cold, cruel laughter from species who had lived for tens of thousands of years. To them, humanity's defense was nothing more than foolish hope. The High Speaker of the Council, a tall and ancient figure wrapped in flowing silver robes, raised his staff. The sound echoed like thunder, and the chamber fell silent. His voice was deep and calm, but final. The vote shall be cast. The galaxy will decide if Earth remains, or if Earth shall be exiled forever. Holographic lights appeared above every seat, glowing with the choice of each delegate. One by one, they flared red. Exile. 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 Row after row, empire after empire, the judgment of the galaxy burned in crimson light. A few flickers of blue appeared, votes to keep humanity, but they were swallowed by the sea of red. The High Speaker lowered his staff. The decision is made. Humanity is banished. Their ships shall not enter our trade lanes. Their colonies shall not be recognized. No council, no empire, no ally shall give them aid. They are cut off. They are alone. His voice carried through the chamber, final and unbreakable. They are cut off. They are alone. His voice carried through the chamber, final and unbreakable. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then the chamber erupted in noise. Some cheered, some sighed in relief, others whispered with unease. In the center of the great hall, the image of Earth flickered, then faded into nothingness. It was as if the entire planet had been erased in an instant, not destroyed, but forgotten. And yet, far away, on the small blue world that had just been condemned, humanity did not cry. They did not beg. They did not kneel. On Earth, the words of exile were received with cold silence. Governments met behind closed doors. Leaders sat in dim rooms, their faces pale but their eyes sharp. Across continents, generals, scientists, and visionaries came together. Exile was not the end. It was the beginning. In a military command bunker buried deep beneath mountains, screens glowed with news of the council's vote. Some officers cursed. Others slammed fists against metal tables. But one voice cut through the noise. calm, steady, and unshaken. We were never one of them. And now, we never have to pretend. They wanted us gone. Fine. Let them see what that means. Factories on Earth roared louder that night. Research labs locked their doors. New satellites launched into orbit, not for trade or communication, but for silence and secrecy. Earth pulled back from the galaxy, closing itself like a fist. The stars beyond grew quiet, and alien merchants who once traveled to human ports found empty docks and abandoned stations. Whispers spread across the galaxy. Some said Earth was broken, shamed, brought low by exile. Others claimed they had seen human warships moving through dark space, silent and hidden, like predators waiting in the shadows. But no one truly knew. The Council believed they had removed a problem. But what they had done was far more dangerous. They had freed humanity from rules. No longer bound by treaties or laws, no longer slowed by politics or alliances, Earth was on its own path now. A path no one could predict. Years of suspicion, years of being treated as less, years of being watched and judged had burned deep into the human heart. And now, with exile, all those years had become fuel. Fuel for something greater. On the night after the vote, a storm swept across the Atlantic Ocean. Thunder rolled above cities, lightning cracked the skies. And in those cities, men and women worked through the storm, their hands building, their minds racing. Somewhere in the Black Seas, a fleet of submarines carried cargo never seen before. Somewhere in the deserts, massive engines roared, testing power that had never been tested. And somewhere above the clouds, in orbit, silent ships moved with no lights, no signals, only shadows. The galaxy thought Earth had been silenced. But silence was only the surface. Beneath, something vast was moving. Something no council, no empire, no alien could control. Humanity had been cast out. But humanity had never waited for permission. They were not asking for a seat at the table anymore. They were building their own. And as the council celebrated their victory, as alien worlds drank and cheered at the removal of the human threat, a whisper moved quietly between those who knew better. A whisper that carried fear. Exile will not break them. Exile will make them stronger. What no one in the council realized, not yet, was that in banishing Earth, they had not ended the story of humanity. They had only lit the fuse. The galaxy waited for Earth to cry out. For weeks after the vote, traders and patrol ships moved through the void, expecting human signals of desperation. They thought Earth would plead for forgiveness, would beg to be allowed back into the fold. But no such message ever came. The channels once filled with human voices went quiet. Stations that used to beam with trade and chatter now stood empty. It was as if the humans had pulled a curtain across their world and vanished behind it. At first, the silence was dismissed. Some said the humans were simply hiding in shame. Others believed they were too proud to admit defeat. A few claimed Earth was already collapsing without the support of galactic trade. But as days turned into months, that silence grew heavier, stranger, and more unsettling. Alien freighters that had long depended on human goods arrived at Earth's orbital stations only to find them abandoned. The docks were empty, the signals dead, the lights extinguished. Automated defenses that once guided ships were powered down. It was not a slow fading away, it was a sudden vanishing. Where once there had been activity, there was nothing. In the far reaches of the spiral arm, colonies that had once traded with human merchants found themselves cut off. No shipments came, no messages answered. One by one, alien governments declared humans broken and finished. They laughed at the idea of Earth surviving alone. They said exile had worked. But others were not so sure. Patrols began to report strange findings. Debris fields drifting in space where no battle should have taken place. Power signatures that flared and then disappeared before sensors could lock on. And always, the same detail, shadows of movement at the edge of detection, as if ships without lights were watching, waiting, stalking the void. A small research vessel claimed it had seen something in the asteroid belt near Sol. A fleet of black shapes moving in perfect silence, vanishing as soon as scanners turned toward them. The crew filed a report, but it was dismissed as fear, as shadows of rocks mistaken for ships. Yet the rumor spread, whispered in docking bays and among soldiers, humanity was not hiding. Humanity was preparing. On Earth itself, behind the silence, the truth was far more dangerous. Cities had dimmed their signals, but their hearts burned brighter than ever. Factories ran at full capacity, hidden from prying eyes. New engines were tested in underground chambers. Whole regions were turned into training grounds, soldiers drilling under banners that no alien eye had ever seen. The governments of Earth had cast aside their endless arguments, united under the shadow of exile. What they could not achieve through diplomacy, they would achieve through force. Children grew up hearing the words "never again." Farmers gave their crops to feed soldiers. Scientists abandoned civilian work to build weapons no alien mind had ever conceived. And in the void above the planet, the first of a new breed of warship took shape, black as night, silent as the grave. Its hull reflected no light, its engines burned without sound. It was not meant for patrols, not for defense. It was meant for something else. The galaxy had closed its doors. Humanity no longer asked to be let inside. Instead, they built their own doorway, one forged of steel, fire, and silence. Meanwhile, whispers continued to spread. A freighter captain swore he had been followed through deep space by something fast and silent. A border world reported its outposts mysteriously losing power for hours at a time, as if probed by unknown forces. The Council dismissed these reports. They claimed humanity had been broken, that their silence was proof of weakness. But fear lingered in the corners of every conversation. In the darkest parts of the void, where no trade routes passed and no empires dared to build, ships with no markings gathered. They carried no signals, no flags, no alliances. Only one word was whispered by those who saw them and lived to tell the tale: humans. The silence was not weakness. The silence was the sound of teeth sharpening in the dark. The Council had wanted Earth gone. They had wanted the humans quiet. Now, they had both. But silence can be far more terrifying than noise, because silence means something is waiting. And somewhere, in the quiet of space, a human commander stood on the bridge of a black ship, watching the stars. Her eyes were cold, her voice calm. "They wanted us silent," she said to her crew. "So let them hear nothing, until it is too late." The galaxy believed exile was victory. They believed Earth had been broken. But in truth, the silence was only the beginning of a storm. Deep beneath the mountains of Earth, the air thundered with the sound of machines. Miles of steel caverns stretched into the dark, each filled with fire, sparks, and the roar of engines being born. Entire cities had been reshaped into factories. Subterranean hangars glowed with molten metal as ship hulls were poured into molds. The planet that the Council had called primitive was no longer building for trade or peace. Every hand, every mind, every ounce of strength had turned toward one purpose. Humanity was building for war. On the surface, the cities still looked quiet. Lights dimmed, broadcasts silent, no outward sign of strength. To the galaxy, Earth was invisible, forgotten, locked behind a wall of silence. But below that calm surface, a storm was forming. Engineers worked without rest, scientists pushed their limits, and soldiers trained until their muscles broke and rebuilt. There were no wasted hours. Every second was counted, every resource weighed, every tool sharpened. A new breed of shipyard had risen in orbit. They were not the shining docks that once welcomed trade vessels from across the galaxy. These were darker, hidden behind veils of signal-jamming fields. From a distance, they looked like empty space, only debris drifting among the stars. But within, shadows of titanic frames grew. Warships, black and sharp, bristling with weapons alien eyes had never seen. Each vessel was forged in secrecy, designed not for defense but for domination. The first prototypes were tested in silence. Engines lit, faster and smoother than anything built before. Weapons fired, tearing apart test targets with brutal precision. Stealth systems activated, rendering entire fleets invisible to scanners. Humans did not build slowly, as the Council expected. They built like a species that had always been preparing for this moment, as if exile had only unleashed what was waiting inside them. The galaxy told itself that Earth was finished. That humans, cut off from trade and allies, could not last. But reports began to trickle in from border systems. Patrols found stations stripped clean, their data stolen, their defenses disabled. Traders spoke of ships that appeared from nowhere, moving with unnatural speed, then vanishing before pursuit could be launched. At first, these were dismissed as lies. But as the stories spread, so did the fear. Humanity had not fallen into silence. Humanity had been sharpening its blade. On Earth, the people understood what exile meant. No one complained. No one begged for mercy. Instead, they worked. Farmers turned their fields into supply lines, sending food to hidden garrisons. Scientists no longer researched cures or comforts, they designed weapons that could end battles in seconds. Entire generations grew with the same fire burning inside. Never again. Never again would they beg for a place among the stars. Never again would they kneel before alien judgment. And in hidden chambers, leaders spoke quietly about what was to come. They did not plan for survival. They planned for victory. The council had cast them out, but humanity would not remain outside. They would return. Not as guests. Not as equals. They would return as rulers. The forge of war was not only steel and fire. It was also the uniting of minds. Nations that once fought bitterly now shared resources and secrets. Old enemies stood side by side, their quarrels buried beneath the weight of exile. Where once Earth was divided, now it was one. For the first time in human history, all of Earth looked in the same direction, not at each other, but at the stars. The galaxy had always feared humanity for its violence, for its passion, for its refusal to bow. And now, in exile, those fears were becoming reality. Humanity was not weakened by banishment. Humanity was purified by it. Freed of distraction, freed of compromise, they had become something else. Something the galaxy had never wanted to face. The ships that emerged from the forge were given no names in public record. They were whispered about only in closed circles. Sleek, silent, shaped for the kill. Their hulls drank the light, their engines bent the silence, their weapons carried the promise of storms. They were not fleets of defense. They were predators, waiting to be released. And among them, a single figure stood at the center of it all. A commander chosen not by politics or blood, but by skill and will. She had grown in the age of Earth silence, trained in the crucible of exile, and her voice carried through every deck, every crew. To her soldiers, she said the words that would become the heart of humanity's return: they cast us out. They thought they ended us. But they have given us freedom. Freedom to strike. Freedom to rise. Freedom to take back everything and more. The forge of war was complete. The galaxy did not yet see it. The council still laughed, still dismissed the humans as broken. But in the dark, ships waited. Crews trained. Weapons glowed. The silence that had once seemed like weakness was now the mask of something far greater. And soon, very soon, the mask would fall. In the outer edges of alien space, a patrol ship drifted along its route. Its crew was bored, half asleep at their posts, scanning empty skies. For years, these patrols had been the same, quiet, routine, without danger. Humanity had been exiled, and the council believed that meant safety. The patrol ship's captain leaned back in his chair, thinking of the long shift ahead, when the first alarm flickered on his screen. It was faint, almost nothing, just a ripple in the dark. A signal that shouldn't have been there. The captain frowned and ordered a scan. The scanners swept the void, but the result returned empty. Nothing but stars. The crew laughed nervously, muttering that the system must be broken. Then the lights on the ship dimmed, just for an instant. A power drain, like something had brushed against them. And then silence returned. Hours later, when the patrol ship failed to send its scheduled report, the council dismissed it as an error. A malfunction. A lost signal. Ships vanished sometimes in deep space. No one worried. Not yet. But then, it happened again. Another patrol ship, gone without a trace. No distress call, no debris, no warning. One day it was there, the next it was not. Soon, whispers began among border worlds. Captains swore they had seen shadows moving in the black. Traders claimed their ships had been followed by something silent, faster than anything they had known. When they turned their scanners, the shadows vanished. When they turned away, the feeling of being hunted returned. Fear began to spread. Not openly, not yet, but in quiet voices in the docking bays, in the hidden corners of markets. The same word passed between them. Humans. On Earth, those whispers were no accident. In the hidden command centers, fleets of black ships moved like ghosts. They left no signals, no trails. They struck without warning, testing their weapons, their tactics, their crews. Each strike was careful, chosen to send a message without revealing too much. A patrol here, a supply depot there, small targets vanishing into silence. Enough to frighten, not enough to reveal the size of the force. The galaxy searched for answers. The Council demanded reports, evidence, anything to explain the disappearances. Some said pirates were growing bold. Others claimed rival empires were staging secret attacks. But in the deepest chambers of power, a truth no one wanted to admit began to take shape. Humanity had not been destroyed by exile. Humanity was hunting. In a dark system, far from trade routes, an alien frigate stumbled across a sight it should never have seen. A fleet of human ships, black as shadows, drifting silently among asteroids. Their hulls gleamed with a strange metallic shine, their weapons glowing faintly as if alive. The frigate tried to flee, its engines burning bright, but before it could jump to safety, the black ships moved. They did not roar into battle with noise and fire. They slid from the dark like predators, cutting through the frigate's defenses in seconds. The alien crew never had time to send a warning. The frigate was gone, swallowed by silence. Rumors exploded. Some said humans had returned with weapons stolen from ancient ruins. Others claimed they had allied with unknown powers. But the truth was simpler. Exile had given them time. Time to build. Time to train. Time to sharpen themselves into something far more dangerous than the Council had ever feared. In the Council chambers, delegates argued in panic. Reports piled up. Patrols missing. Colonies abandoned. Fleets vanishing into the dark. "It is impossible," one shouted. They were cut off. They had no resources. Another slammed his hand against the table. "Impossible or not, they are moving. And if we do not act, they will be at our gates." But still, many refused to believe. They told themselves it was fear, rumor, exaggeration. Humanity could not have risen so fast. Humanity could not be so bold. They were wrong. On the bridge of a human flagship, the commander looked out at the stars. Around her, the silent black fleet waited, engines glowing faintly like embers in the night. Her voice carried calm and iron. "They exiled us. They believed we would vanish. They believed silence meant defeat. Now we will show them what silence truly means." The first strike had begun. It would not be the last. And across the galaxy, from the richest core worlds to the smallest colonies, the same thought echoed in every mind. The humans were no longer the hunted. They were the hunters. From the edge of a dying star system, they appeared. At first, only a few lights shimmered against the void, so faint that alien patrol ships thought them to be drifting debris. But then the shadows moved, engines igniting one by one, black hulls glowing faintly like embers being stirred. What emerged was not a handful of ships. It was an armada. The Black Fleet had risen. The ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their hulls did not gleam with banners or bright colors. They drank the starlight, vanishing against the dark until they chose to reveal themselves. Sleek, sharp, and silent, they carried weapons far beyond what exiled humans should have been able to build. Some ships were massive, moving fortresses that bristled with firepower. Others were swift and slender, built to cut through defenses like blades. And together, they moved as one, silent and coordinated, like a predator pack. The first world to see them was a small trading colony. Its people had grown used to the quiet since Earth's exile, believing the humans broken and forgotten. But when the Black Fleet emerged from hyperspace, silence turned to terror. Defenses were activated, alarms sounded, and the colony's governor begged for reinforcements. But the humans did not give them time. The first salvo of weapons struck with precision, disabling every defense system in minutes. Not destroyed, disabled. As if the humans wanted them alive to spread the story. The Black Fleet didn't land, didn't conquer. It simply circled the colony like wolves around prey, then vanished back into the dark, leaving behind nothing but fear. Within days, word spread across the stars. The humans had returned, and they carried with them a fleet built in exile, forged in silence, and unleashed in fury. On the bridge of her flagship, the human commander watched the stars with steady eyes. Her fleet was no longer hiding in shadows. It had shown itself, daring the galaxy to respond. Her voice was calm, but her words were heavy with fire. They thought exile was a cage. They thought silence meant defeat. But exile gave us freedom. And freedom gave us this fleet. Now, we take back the stars. Across the galaxy, panic erupted. Alien merchants abandoned human trade routes. Council delegates shouted in fear and anger. Some demanded war against Earth immediately, calling for fleets to gather and crush the humans before their strength grew further. Others whispered caution, their voices trembling. They had seen the reports. Entire patrol squadrons gone without a trace. Colonies silenced overnight. Fleets vanishing into dark space where black ships prowled unseen. To strike at humanity now might be to invite disaster. But the humans did not wait for the Council to decide. The Black Fleet moved again. A supply world that once laughed at Earth's exile was surrounded and stripped bare in a single night. A mining station deep in asteroid fields was emptied, its resources taken without leaving a trace. And still, the humans did not conquer. They struck, they stripped, and then they vanished, leaving the galaxy to choke on fear. Everywhere, whispers grew. The humans are not asking for a seat at the table anymore. They are building their own table. And soon, we may all sit beneath it. In the hidden war rooms of Earth, leaders watched the galaxy's reaction with cold precision. Each strike had a purpose. Each appearance of the Black Fleet was calculated. They were not fighting blindly. They were shaping fear, spreading panic, forcing the galaxy to see them not as victims of exile but as predators returning to claim their place. And yet, the humans had not shown their full strength. The ships that had appeared were only part of the fleet, a taste of what exile had built. In the shipyards hidden around Earth and its colonies, more vessels waited. Larger, faster, deadlier. The Black Fleet was not only a weapon, it was a promise. A promise that humanity would never again bow to anyone. The Council gathered once more, but this time the voices were no longer calm. Fear had cracked the chamber. Some demanded to send every fleet they had to Earth and burn it to ash. Others argued that such a war would destroy them all, for if the Black Fleet was as powerful as reports claimed, an open fight might shatter the balance of the galaxy. The delegates shouted, their voices echoing across the Grand Hall, but beneath the noise, a single truth spread like fire. Humanity was no longer the exiled. Humanity was the storm on the horizon. And out in the dark, far beyond the Council's reach, the Black Fleet gathered again. Engines hummed, weapons glowed, and every crew member aboard those ships knew what was coming. The galaxy thought they had silenced Earth. Now, they would learn that silence was only the warning before thunder. The Black Fleet was not hiding anymore. It was rising. And the stars themselves seemed to tremble at its return. The Council chamber had never known such chaos. Once, the vast hall had been a place of order, where voices rose in calm debate and decisions were made with ancient dignity. But now, the sound of fear filled the air. Delegates shouted over one another, their voices sharp with panic, their words breaking into fragments. The Black Fleet had been seen. Not once, not twice, but many times. Colonies were crippled, supply routes shattered, and whole squadrons of ships had disappeared without trace. The silence of exile had ended, replaced with something far worse, war in the shadows. The High Speaker struck his staff against the floor, demanding silence. The sound thundered through the chamber, but this time, silence did not follow. Fear had drowned respect. "We must strike Earth now," one delegate roared, his scaled tail lashing against the ground. "If we wait, they will grow stronger. The humans are already too bold. Do you not see? They do not hide anymore. They attack openly." Another delegate, feathers trembling, shouted back. "Strike Earth. Are you mad? Have you not seen the reports? Fleets of theirs appear without warning, and disappear without a trace. If we march on them, we may walk straight into their trap. What if the Black Fleet is larger than we think? What if what we've seen is only a fraction?" The chamber erupted again. Some demanded war, others begged for caution, and still more whispered that it was already too late. No one spoke of peace. No one believed the humans would listen now. Exile had stripped away the last chance for mercy. As the arguments raged, a messenger drone entered the hall, projecting images across the air. The sight silenced the chamber. It was the wreckage of a fleet, dozens of ships torn apart, their remains drifting through space. These were not minor patrols. This was a strike force, sent to hunt the humans. Every ship had been destroyed. The silence was crushing. The Council had ordered war already, in secret, and humanity had answered with fire. For the first time in generations, the great empires looked at one another not with trust, but with fear. Some suspected betrayal. Others accused rivals of secretly aiding the humans. Old grudges resurfaced, as if exile had cracked open wounds the galaxy had long tried to bury. The unity of the Council, which had lasted for thousands of years, began to fracture. Whispers spread through the chamber. Perhaps the humans were right to prepare. Perhaps they saw what we refused to see. That the Council is weak. Some delegates sat in silence, their eyes lowered, their confidence gone. The galaxy's mighty order was breaking, and the humans had not even revealed their full strength. Far from the Council's hall, the Black Fleet watched. Their commander received every report, every argument, every sign of weakness. She stood on her bridge, eyes calm, and said only, "They are breaking themselves. We need only push." Her words carried through the fleet, steady as steel. Humanity did not rush. They waited, striking only where it mattered, letting fear do the rest. And fear was winning. Alien worlds once loyal to the Council began to waver. Merchants abandoned the core worlds to avoid human ambushes. Soldiers muttered about orders that might lead them into traps. Ordinary citizens asked the question their leaders tried to silence. If humans could exile themselves from the galaxy and return stronger, then what did that mean for the future of everyone else? The Council's banners still hung in the Great Hall, glowing with bright colors, but beneath them, the unity they represented was crumbling. The humans had not only struck with weapons. They had struck with fear, and fear was tearing the Council apart from within. As the meeting dragged into the night, the High Speaker sat in silence, his hands trembling on his staff. Around him, empires that once trusted one another now accused, threatened, and doubted. The humans had been exiled, cast away like unwanted children. But now, it was the Council itself that stood on the edge of exile, from its own unity, from its own strength. And out in the endless dark, the Black Fleet prepared for the next move. Humanity had broken no treaties, signed no alliances, made no promises. They had simply shown the galaxy a glimpse of what exile had made them. And that glimpse alone was enough to shatter the order of 1,000 years. The Council was broken. And it was only the beginning. The war began not with a declaration, but with fire. Across the stars, colonies loyal to the Council woke to alarms and panic. Entire skies lit up as the Black Fleet emerged from hyperspace, engines flaring like the breath of a predator. They no longer struck in silence. They no longer vanished after one blow. This time, they stayed. This time, they came to take. The first target was a weapons foundry orbiting a gas giant. For centuries, it had supplied fleets across the galaxy with war machines. When the humans arrived, the defenders activated shields, readied cannons, and called for reinforcements. But the reinforcements never came. The Council's fleets were scattered, uncertain, and afraid. Alone, the foundry stood against the storm. The Black Fleet tore through its defenses, its weapons precise and merciless. In less than an hour, the foundry was in human hands. News spread faster than light. Humanity was no longer raiding for resources. Humanity was taking territory. The second strike came only days later. A trade hub, one of the largest in the sector, was encircled by black ships that blotted out the stars. Instead of annihilation, the humans made an offer. Surrender, and live. Resist, and burn. The hub surrendered. Its citizens, who had once cheered Earth's exile, now bowed their heads in silence as human banners rose above their skies. The galaxy trembled. On Earth, leaders gathered in command halls lit with cold blue light. Maps of star systems glowed before them, each one marked with red and black. Earth's exile had ended the moment the Council voted against them, but the true war had only just begun. Now, humanity would carve out its place in the galaxy, not as beggars for mercy but as rulers by right. Alien empires scrambled to respond. Fleets were sent to defend key worlds, but fear spread faster than ships could move. Soldiers whispered of the Black Fleet's speed, of weapons that could pierce any shield, of humans who fought with a fury no other species could match. Some worlds fortified themselves, others fled into the void, and still others secretly began sending envoys to Earth. The Council's orders grew weaker by the day, ignored by worlds that no longer trusted its power. The humans pressed their advantage. For every colony they conquered, they gave the same choice: surrender and live, or resist and fall. Many surrendered without a fight. Those who resisted paid in blood. And with each victory, the Black Fleet grew stronger, feeding on the resources of its enemies, building new ships, new weapons, new armies. But this was more than war. This was revenge. Every strike carried meaning. Worlds that had voted loudest for Earth's exile were targeted first. Leaders who had mocked humanity in the council chamber were dragged from their palaces as human boots marched through their halls. Each victory was a message. The humans had not forgotten. They never would. On the bridge of her flagship, the commander of the Black Fleet stood before her officers. Her voice carried across every channel, calm and sharp as steel. They cast us out into the dark, believing we would vanish. Instead, we built strength in silence. Now, the dark itself fights for us. This is not their galaxy anymore. It is ours. And we will take it back, world by world, star by star. Her words became the cry of a people once exiled, now risen. Across the fleet, human soldiers struck their chests in salute, their eyes burning with determination. The war of return had begun, and nothing in the galaxy could stop it. The Council still tried to cling to power. Emergency meetings were called, alliances forged in desperation, fleets promised in numbers too vast to count. But behind their speeches, fear hollowed them out. They knew what was coming. The Black Fleet was not just winning battles. It was rewriting the balance of the galaxy itself. And yet, the humans were not blind to the cost. For every victory, lives were lost. Ships were scarred, soldiers buried, and families back on Earth grieved. But grief did not weaken them, it hardened them. Humanity had always endured loss. Exile had taught them pain. Now, they wielded that pain like a weapon sharper than any blade. The war raged on. World after world fell. The stars, once distant and indifferent, now bore witness to fire and conquest. And in every shadow, in every battle, one truth became clear: the humans were no longer exiles. They were conquerors. The galaxy had chosen to cast them out. Humanity had chosen to return in war. And the war was far from over. The final battle began with silence. In the deepest reaches of space, fleets gathered in numbers not seen in 1,000 years. The Council had summoned every empire, every warship, every soldier it could still command. Dozens of species, once divided, now stood side by side, their ships stretched across the stars like an endless wall of steel and fire. This was their last chance. If they lost here, the galaxy itself would belong to humanity. The humans knew it too. The Black Fleet assembled in answer, dark against the light of distant suns. They did not match the Council in numbers, but they did not need to. Their ships were faster, stronger, sharper. And their crews carried a fire no machine could measure. Exile had forged them into something the galaxy had never seen before, a people who had nothing to lose and everything to gain. The fleets faced one another across the void. For a long moment, the stars held their breath. Then, with a single order, the silence shattered. The galaxy burned. Weapons lit up space, beams of light cutting through the dark, missiles streaking like falling stars. Entire cruisers exploded in fire, their debris tumbling into the void. The Black Fleet moved like a living beast, ships weaving in deadly patterns, striking where the enemy was weakest, vanishing before they could be trapped. The Council's fleets fought with desperation, but desperation could not match precision. On her flagship, the human commander stood calm as chaos raged outside. Her voice was steady as she gave her orders, each one turning the tide of battle, each strike cutting deeper into the Council's strength. "Push forward," she said, her eyes locked on the great flagship of the Council. "We end this today." Hours passed like minutes. The battlefield became a graveyard of wreckage and fire. The Council's great wall of ships broke apart under the relentless assault. Some fled, their commanders unwilling to die for a cause already lost. Others fought to the bitter end, their ships colliding with human cruisers in suicidal fury. But the Black Fleet endured. For every loss, 3 victories followed. At last, The human flagship pierced through the heart of the Council's armada. The enemy's command ship loomed ahead, a fortress of steel surrounded by the shattered remains of its defenders. The human commander gave a single order. Fire! The sky split open. The Council's flagship vanished in a storm of light and flame. The battle was over. Silence returned, but it was no longer the silence of exile. It was the silence of victory. Across the battlefield, human ships spread their banners. Soldiers cheered, their voices echoing through comms, a roar that filled the void. For the first time in history, the galaxy belonged not to the Council, but to Earth. On the Council's former homeworld, its surviving delegates bowed their heads as human boots marched through their once sacred halls. No longer rulers, they were prisoners of their own arrogance. The humans had come as exiles. They returned as conquerors. On Earth, cities erupted in celebration. Families wept for those lost, but their tears were mixed with pride. Humanity had endured exile, had risen in war, and had claimed victory against impossible odds. They had not only survived the galaxy's hatred, they had mastered it. In the quiet after the war, the human commander stood on her bridge, watching the stars. Her voice was soft, but it carried across every ship of the fleet. They cast us into the dark. But the dark was never our end. It was our beginning. Now the stars are ours, and no one will exile us again. The Black Fleet sailed forward, engines blazing against the endless void. The galaxy was forever changed. The age of the Council had ended. The age of humanity had begun.